2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number. I don't know what number this is. Grace, have you any idea?
Not a chance.
I've lost count. We are in the pits of lockdown as we record this, so I don't know when this will be released for people to watch, but it's currently middle of May. Hence, this is our first Let's Talk done over Zoom. So we are joined with Grace today. Grace, how are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm doing well. You know, struggling on, powering through, as they say. So,
how's lockdown been? Have you been bored out of your mind, or has it been okay?
Yeah, I have been bored out of my mind. I really do miss, coffee shops. Yeah, proper coffee, stuff like that. I really do miss that. But hey.
Which coffee shop do you miss the most? Any notable mentions?
Look, I don't know. I don't really know. I go to Creed a lot just because where I'm like Lauren. There's a Creed, and then Carrick there's a Creed.
I've been to the one in Carrick. It's quite nice.
Yeah, it is nice. It's small, but it's nice. I would go there quite a lot. So,
what about Mickey D's? You miss Mickey D's?
Oh, it's a sensitive topic.
Sensitive topic. I know.
Tell me about it.
Tell me about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so if you're watching this and lockdown has been lifted, what's your message, Grace? Just tell them don't take it for granted. Your freedom. Enjoy your freedom.
Yeah, just enjoy it, guys. Just enjoy it.
Your ancestors fought for this freedom, and you're enjoying it. So, Grace, tell us what our topic is for today.
Well, it is on dating. So we're talking about that. Yeah. So the last one I did was on friendships. So we are kind of going on to the second bit of that, like relationships as a whole, which is the dating scene. So, yeah. Very
good. Big one for young people.
Yeah, definitely.
As we think about this topic, of course, there's no such thing as dating in the Bible. Grace, so what then, if dating's not in the Bible, what is the purpose of it?
Yeah, so I guess you could say, well, the purpose of dating is dating with purpose. So it's figuring out what the purpose is itself. So I feel Christians today do seem a bit confused on dating. It's as though they are scared of that term dating. So they've adapted this phrase, we're just talking. It's just casual, which is very kind of like in society today, it's just very casual. Like we're just getting to know each other. But dating and marriage isn't casual. It's something not to be taken lightly. And something that always kind of strikes with me is you can never actually really talk about dating without marriage coming into the picture. And there is a reason for that, because the two do work together. You see, being married to a person in this life isn't our ultimate purpose, which I feel we as Christians do get wrong. We kind of plan it out as though we date, and we think we found the one, and then we're married, boom, happily ever after. But something that's really important to remember is there isn't actually going to be marriage in heaven. And Jesus makes that clear to us in Matthew chapter 23, verse 23 to 33. Jesus is the groom, and he is coming back for his bride, the church, and that's us. And you see, being wed to Christ is the ultimate purpose. And I think for single people, it's kind of important for them to have that perspective, so that they don't overvalue getting married. And for married people, so they don't lose sight of their purpose being together. And then for people who are dating, it's more for them to realize the purpose of why they're dating, to find someone who can become their spiritual buddy as such during this journey of this life, and ultimately kind of ushering each other, one another to the arms of their Savior. I feel like that is the purpose. And marriage paints that picture of Jesus and the church becoming one. And when you're at a ceremony for marriage, it talks the pastor usually will talk about the man and the wife becoming one flesh, and that's what marriage paints, Jesus and the church becoming one. So yeah, if your current habit and mindset for dating doesn't really pass this, like doesn't really match up with what's just been said, I do feel like you should take a pause from the dating scene, because dating isn't a game. Dating is not casual. Dating is not just talking. In dating someone, you are looking for a companion with who you can move through this life with, and ultimately, you know, kind of pointing each other to the ultimate purpose, which is being one with Christ. So I do believe that is the purpose, dating with purpose, and there's your purpose, being one with Christ, pointing one another to Jesus. So
it's really helpful that the purpose of dating is dating with purpose. That's a helpful takeaway for the listeners of this. And what you said there about, I suppose, marriage not being the end goal, that's really important, something we do well to remember. We always tend to think marriage is the end goal, but as you say, the end goal is Jesus taking his bride to church, which is what we're all striving for. Great. When we think about dating, would you say there's a right way to date and a wrong way to date? You've maybe touched on some of those ideas there. Do you want to pick up on that for us?
Yeah, so I've kind of give you the purpose of it. So there is a right way and a wrong way, and God repeatedly warns Christians marrying someone who is not a Christian. And I do feel that is quite a big one with our society today, you know, Christians dating non-Christians, but God warns against it in the Bible. So by doing so, you're just setting yourself up to be drawn away from God. Dating an unbeliever can lead into a kind of marriage God warns against. In Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 3-5, it reads this: "For this is the will of God, your sanctification, that you abstain from sexual immorality, that each one of you know how to control his own body in holiness and honor, not in the passion of lust like Gentiles who do not know God." And I feel like we should, as Christians, guard ourselves from physical intimacy in a dating relationship. It's such a big thing in our society today. You know, it's okay to have sex outside of marriage, but such intimacy is reserved only for marriage, because it is a picture, marriage is a picture of purity and devotion we should be reserving for God in our worship. And I'll talk a wee bit more about that in Let's Talk Marriage, because there is so much there, but as long as you kind of understand that wee bit. But it's so important that we are dating someone for the right reasons, which is what I've kind of touched on in the first question there, but not just dating someone for the sake of being in a relationship because all my friends are in one. Because what you're doing when you do this is that you're basically saying, God isn't enough for me. You know, you're basically saying, God isn't enough for me. But if God isn't enough for you, no person ever will be. Because as Christians, our identity is in Christ alone, not in a person that we think might be the one. And I feel a lot of us Christians do kind of fall into this trap that people can give us identity, that they can provide our needs, that they can give us purpose. But that's the problem. We are letting someone else fill our life. And I do believe that if we're doing that, if we're letting someone else fill our life, we're living out our faith wrong. We're to be filling up our lives with God, because he is all we need. And once you realize that Christ is enough for you, and that you don't need a relationship to be fulfilled, but rather you've been given the relationship from God because he knows what you need, and that is what you need, the relationship that he's provided. I remember hearing, I think Michael Todd, he's a pastor in America, and he said this, you know, when you sit and you make all these plans, and you know, you meet someone and you're like, oh, this person, I'm going to marry this person because we got on really well, and you know, they're good looking and they're a Christian, etc., etc. But then we get upset when our plan doesn't work out, and usually we'll say, oh, but Lord, I really thought this is what you wanted for me. But this is the thing, God doesn't fund our plans, he funds his own plans for us. So when relationships don't work out the way you wanted it, Two, it's because it wasn't a part of God's plan. So don't think to yourself, oh, because this one didn't work out, I need to date all these other, like I need to date multiple people at once, and then God will choose what one is right for me. You know what I mean? That is wrong. We are to date with purpose, like we were talking about in the first question. We are to date with purpose, and half the time we aren't really looking for that. We aren't looking for the right reasons. We're doing it because we're lonely. We're doing it because everyone else is doing it. You know, it's not because I want to glorify God through it. And so essentially what I'm saying is the right way is to glorify God, and the wrong way is to self-glorify. Basically, that's the right and the wrong way to date.
And I suppose that in a sense, what you're saying there about being in a dating relationship or pursuing one for self-serving reasons, it's robbing God of his glory, but it's also not fair or loving to the other person, because they might have more noble intentions, you know, to glorify God, you know, through this, and your motivations aren't for their benefit. It's actually just for your own benefit. So I suppose that's something else to consider as well. That's really helpful. Thank you. So what about one common question that always gets asked if you do any sort of Q&A at, you know, camps about topics like this? They always talk about boundaries in a dating relationship. Do you want to add into that?
Yeah. So as Christians, we are called to live a pure and honourable life and to maintain a clear conscience. And the best way to maintain purity and honour and a clear conscience is to resist temptation of sin. Now, yes, that is easier said than done. I know that. I'm a sinner myself, you know, I understand that. But God always gives us a way out. And even when the temptation is a sexual sin, he gives us a way out. And that's made clear in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he also provides a way out so that you can endure it. You see, you can't really use the excuse of, you know, but like I was tempted, like I couldn't resist. God always will give you a way out of it. And it's up to us to take that opportunity, the opportunity to get out of the situation. And like, God puts boundaries for our own good. He knows what is best for us. He doesn't do it because he's a cruel God and he wants to ruin your fun. He's not like that at all. He knows what's best for you. For example, I like to use this picture of a parent and a child. So parents know if you don't set restrictions for your child, that they're putting their child at risk. So for instance, you know, a toddler and a gate. So the parent puts a gate on the stairs to stop the child from falling down the stairs. And they do this so because the parent knows the outcome. The child doesn't, because the child doesn't know any better at such a young age, and that the child is going to hurt itself. And that's essentially what God is doing. He's putting this parameter, this boundary for us, for our own good, because we don't know any better. And testing the boundaries is also one of the worst ideas you could possibly do. To put yourself in a situation where you're going to be tempted with your partner. You know, I hear that so much, you know, oh, well, it's okay. It's okay. Like they try and, you know, make it better for themselves. So they try to talk themselves into it. That's testing the boundaries. You know, when God says no, he means no. It's like that saying, you know, everyone knows it, you know, don't play with fire or you're going to get burned. You see, there are so many believers who are just spiritually immature, which is why God has set these boundaries for us, to remind us. And something that is important is that these boundaries have been set by God before the person. So these parameters and these boundaries that God has set was before you were even with this person that you're wanting to date, to marry. You know, these are boundaries that have been around for a long time. And I know people are like, exactly, they've been around for ages, so how are they relevant now? Well, very much so that they're relevant for now. They're to protect us. They're to stop us from hurting ourselves, because we don't know any better. God knows our needs. he knows what is good for us. So yeah, that's before the person. And I think another thing that's very kind of important when in a relationship, or even with, you thinking about going into a relationship with someone, is not having standards in your relationship. It's just going to be a mess. And Michael Todd's, I refer to him a lot here, but he puts it quite well, quite modern. He says, if I have no standards and I get into a relationship with someone who doesn't have any standards, guess what we're about to do? Create a hot mess. And that's so true. If you have two people who don't actually have values or even the same values and they're trying to get together, it's just going to be a mess, and both are just going to end up hurt, and God isn't going to be glorified at the end of it. And Michael, he goes on to say, the real power of being a mature Christian is knowing you can, but you don't act on it. So knowing that, okay, yes, I can have sex before marriage. In my head, physically, I could do that, but it's a mature Christian saying, I don't need to act on it because I understand that God has put a boundary there, basically is what he's saying. And 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 23 puts it quite well, I think. The kind of like, we can do all this, but I don't have to because I know it's not going to be good for me. So 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 23 reads this: I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but not everything is constructive. But God knows what is beneficial for you. God knows what is constructive for you, which is why he has set these parameters, these boundaries for us, so that we can have a pure, honourable and clear conscience life within a relationship with God himself. So yeah, I think it's kind of realising that we just need to kind of understand these boundaries and why they are there. They're there for our own good. Because although we may think, okay, I can do it, but it's not actually going to be beneficial for you. And God knows what is beneficial for you. So once you kind of understand that, I think you're at a right place to even think about, dating and marriage and things like that.
That's helpful. I love the analogy as well of what you used about a parent and a child, putting in boundaries which are actually loving. That's sometimes how we view the boundaries in the Bible. We kind of say that seems so restrictive, but it's not. It's restrictive in the short term for your ultimate freedom and for your ultimate benefit. That's helpful. You mentioned the guy a few times, Michael Todd, was that his name? Do you want to give us details about maybe where people can find some of his stuff?
Yeah, so he's an American pastor, and he actually he kind of helped me out when I was researching this stuff. So he actually did a series on relationships. So he covers friendship, dating, and singleness and marriage. So he does a series with his church. So go check him out on YouTube. I think the church is Transformation Church. I think.
Okay.
Can't really remember, but go check him out. He is good now.
If you Google his name, I'm sure you'll be able to find him. Great. Last question then, Grace, just before you wrap up. What about if someone is in a relationship or that sort of context and the other person is trying to push them towards going beyond some of those boundaries that you mentioned there? How would you advise that person?
Well, first of all, if the person you are dating is actually really a true friend and who cares for you and is concerned for what is best for you, that person will honour and respect your desire for purity before marriage. And all in all, they should really respect the standard that God has provided. And if you are the person who's pushing someone to do that, pushing someone beyond their sexual boundaries is abusive, selfish, and very disrespectful. And these really aren't qualities that we should be looking for in a partner. So it's kind of good to remind ourselves, is this actually someone that I want to be dating with purpose for? Is this a companion part? You got to be thinking about those things as well. And I also think, it's not so much how how I can handle it. It's more, how do I let them go? You should be really asking yourself, because this person, you know, if they really loved me, if they really respected me, as well as their relationship with God, they wouldn't be pressuring me to do this right now. And so I think the best thing is probably to let them go, but obviously in a respectful way, and make it clear to them why you're wanting to you know, kind of end things, because it is pretty clear that you guys don't have the same values, which does come back to, you know, having God standards. You know, if you have standards but you're getting into a relationship with someone who doesn't, again, it's just gonna be a mess. So you don't want to be in a relationship where the other person only really cares about themselves and doesn't have any, you know, standards, God standards, or, you know, has a very weak relationship with God and is gonna pull you down in your relationship with God. And something I think was quite good in my head, so hopefully it comes out right, is actually in Colossians chapter 3 verse 5. It reads this, you know, put to death therefore whatever belongs to your earthly nature: sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. And I feel like all those things that were just mentioned there, society screams at us, you know, have sex with whoever you want, it doesn't matter. You know, it's that they belittle sex. It's, you know, just do whatever you want. And another one is, you know, oh, just because you can't touch her or him doesn't mean you can't think about them like that. You know, the list could go on and on, but essentially, like, all it is to do with self and what you want. And again, like, I just want to hit home, you know, not everything is beneficial for you. Not everything is constructive for you, and God knows what is good for you. That's why there's the boundaries. That's why he has the, I don't want to say the style of dating, but kind of the picture of dating and the picture of marriage. And that's why the two go so close together. So if marriage freaks you out, you really shouldn't be dating. You know what I mean? Because the two go so close together. So kind of like rounding it up, all those three questions, you know, I suppose something for us to think about when dating is, one, am I wanting to date with the right purpose of finding a partner who is going to help me to my ultimate purpose, which is being one with Christ? Two, do I fully understand the importance of God's standards and boundaries within a relationship? And three, does my relationship have God's standard values, or does it revolve around one person's selfish desires? So that's kind of how I wrapped that up. But yeah.
Great. Excellent. Thank you so much, Grace. A lot of really helpful content there on the topic. I hope you guys who are watching this enjoyed it and find it beneficial. I'm sure you have. Keep your eyes posted on our social media for a next episode, which will be out in a couple of weeks' time. Other than that, I hope you're keeping safe and well, or if you're out of lockdown, I hope you're enjoying your freedom, and make sure you check back in soon. Thanks, Grace.
Thank you, Matt. See you later.